That's part of the problem, right? These men who would not like for their wives, or more often their girlfriend or former girlfriend, to be pregnant, who obtain these pills online and slip them into their food or drink, and force them into abortions. That's been a serious problem that's come to light here recently, and there's no way to prevent this when it's allowed to be distributed online. You wouldn't do this with any other dangerous drug, but abortion is the exception, as it is in so many other cases.
Hello, I'm Anne McElhinney.
And I'm Philip McAleer.
Welcome to the Anne and Film Scoop.
Yes, Anne. So what's on the show today, Anne McElhinney? Well, October 7, our play, October 7, is coming to the Kennedy Center, the Trump Kennedy Center. On January the 28th, we're going to talk a lot about it during the show. We're going to interview the director who's going to bring these amazing words to life. But just to let you know, if you need a ticket, go to october7theplay.com. But we'll come back to that. As was it Jen Psaki used to say, we'll circle back on that, Anne.
Yeah, we'll circle back on that one. Yeah. Love that expression.
And speaking of anti-Semitism, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro has a tell-all book coming out. What he reveals about his vetting for the VP position is quite disgusting, actually, and reveals a dark truth about the Democrat Party and where it's gone and where it's going.
And does the abortion pill harm women? Our elected officials are finally waking up and asking this question. We interview someone who has the truth about the quiet medical scandal that the establishment do not want to talk about. It's a very important story.
Yes. So if you haven't seen our Kevin Spacey podcast, Kevin Spacey Trial Unfiltered.
If
you haven't listened to, that's true. If you haven't listened to our podcast, Kevin Spacey Trial Unfiltered.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend it. It's an example of media malfeasance, mob justice, leftist dogma, bringing down a brilliant actor.
So he recently spoke at the Oxford Union, and we're going to bring you that. It's an incredible story, and there's a twist.
There's a twist at the end.
And it'll be at the very end of the show, so you want to hang on for that.
Yes.
But before we get to any of that, we have to talk about the October 7 play, which is coming to the Kennedy Center, to the Trump Kennedy Center on January the 28th. If you haven't got a ticket already and you're in the area, please get a ticket right now. Please share with anyone you know who's in the area or who would like to travel there. We even have people flying in from Ireland to see it. So
people flying from Denver.
That's right. So you have no excuse. No matter where you are.
So you have to go to october7theplay.com. That's to buy tickets. So if you're within a day's travel of DC, you really have to go. Honestly, we understand that a lot of people can't go. It's on January 28th, Wednesday, January 28th at 7:30 p.m. If you can't go, please think about making a donation to us. We're a 501c3. All donations are tax deductible. You can go to unreportedstorysociety.com to make the donation.
And we'll put the link up on the screen. Yes. And by the way, at the moment, we have a donor who is doubling all the donations.
Yes.
So please go there and do what you can.
So just to remind people what the October 7 play is about. After October 7, we went to Israel. We interviewed 15 to 20 people. We interviewed survivors. We interviewed the bereaved.
We interviewed heroes who had done extraordinary things, including one, Itamar Alous, who we spoke about last week on our podcast, an amazing guy who in Ofakim, who went out of his home with a pistol with 9 bullets, killed 2 terrorists who were trying to kill everyone in the town. He saved a rabbi. He saved
a soldier,
one of the IDF soldiers. He used his own body as a shield against the bullets that were being being shot at these people. He saved the Bilia family. Just an amazing person. So please come out, buy tickets or donate to help us get this story everywhere.
And as we said last week, Itamar has unfortunately died. He died of natural causes, the death of an Israeli hero. So the play is all the more poignant. We're going to dedicate the play at the Kennedy Center to Itamar. So after we record this podcast, we're going to go to the airport and get on a plane and go to New York for the rehearsals. We have a brilliant squad of actors, most of whom have performed the play before, either in the full version in New York or in the college versions, Bowdoin and Princeton. Earlier, I spoke to Jeff Gurner, who is going to be the director for the Kennedy Center performance. It's a huge job for him. Jeff If you saw the performance in New York, Jeff played Zaki, one of our favorite characters from the play. Zaki rescued 100 people. He was a Coca-Cola installer, and he rescued 100 people from the Nova Dance Festival. Jeff played Zaki in the play, and he has since gone on to direct the performance at Princeton and at Bowdoin College, and he's going to direct it at the Kennedy Center. So let's go to that interview that I recorded just before it came on air. So I'm joined now by Jeff Gurner. Jeff has made a career in the arts for more than 3 decades. He's worked as an actor, a director, producer, musician, a writer, and an educator. He's been on Broadway, Off-Broadway, done national and international tours in theaters. He's been in countless television shows. As a director, he has helmed multiple productions across the United States and is actually also a very, very accomplished voice actor. He's recorded hundreds of commercials. You've probably heard him and not realized it. He's also voiced scores of video games and animated characters, and is an award-winning audiobook narrator of more than 200 titles, including multiple New York Times bestsellers. His theater company, Tequila Talking Theatrical, has developed several new plays and musicals in New York City, and he serves as the producing artistic director of the award-winning New York theater company, New York Rep. He's a graduate of NYU's Tisch School of the Arts and currently lives in Connecticut with his wife, Michelle, sons Ethan and Jonah, and of course, their dogs, Tanner and Mabel. So, Jeff, welcome to the show. Where do I start? I suppose the play is the big thing. I mean, this is an amazing play. You know it very well. But I suppose the Kennedy Center is also amazing. So I suppose take us back to when you first heard about the play, when someone phoned you up or you got an email or you saw the audition. Tell us what you thought. Were you surprised? Did it strike you as strange? Just take us back to that beginning.
It's funny. I was actually attending a musical with my family, my kids, and my mom and my wife. We were in Denver at the time visiting my mom. And I got an email from Robin Karras, the casting director, who said, "Hey, we're doing this verbatim play about October 7th, and we'd love to have you be part of it." And for me, it was such a gift. It was, for everyone who saw the horrors of that day and suffered from afar here, there was such a feeling of helplessness. What can I do? And to have this play be made available to me so that I could, use what, talents I do have to keep these stories alive and bring these people's experiences to life was a real balm for me. So I was incredibly grateful to get that email. And I, of course, immediately phoned Robin back. I left the theater. I think we were at intermission. Wow. And, I stepped out and made a quick phone call to her. And I said, I don't know what the role is. I don't know anything about this play other than that my answer is yes. And I, was monumentally grateful to have the opportunity and glad to have been able to continue on with it and other aspect.
Were you familiar with our work before this? Had you heard of us?
I knew who you guys were, and I was certainly familiar with the FBI Lovebirds play. I had seen coverage of that. I knew about the Gosnell piece, and I knew your work as journalists. So, I was familiar with you. Yeah, happily so.
Yeah, so you accepted the role or wanted to be part of it, and you played Zaki, which he's Anne's favorite character in the whole play. She just loves him. And I have to confess, when I did the first draft of the play and I showed it to Anne, and Anne immediately got to work, and Zaki was not in it.
Okay.
Yes.
What does that
mean? Yes, and Anne immediately got to work and put Zaki in the play, which I in my defense, I didn't have Zaki in because there was another guy in the play who was rescuing people from the Nova Festival. And I thought people would get confused. I thought we had that covered, but Anne was going, no, we need Zaki. So Zaki went in the play, and my God, he's the moral, the character you played, he's the moral compass of the story almost. He's, what would the play be without him?
Yeah. Well, and he presents a unique perspective in the play. Many of the character, I don't like to say characters because they're real people, but the people whose stories we're reliving, were kids from the Nova Festival or residents of the surrounding kibbutzim. But Zaki stands out as unique because he's an Orthodox Jew, and his perspective in the play is not just his story of these extraordinary rescues that he did, and driving back and forth to the essentially the killing fields of the Nova Festival and his home in the Moshav where he lived. He rescued just, I think, near 100 people that day. But his story is unique in that it happened on Shabbat. And he says in the play that, it had been decades since he had broken Shabbat, but he has a line that I'll paraphrase because I don't remember anymore, but he says, yes, I broke Shabbat, it's true, to save a life, because it's the holiest thing in all of Judaism, to save a life. And he says, shortly after that, I hope that people will see we religious people as different. We're not just an isolated enclave of Jews. We care about our fellow Jews, and I think it was his hope that people would maybe see them a bit differently. He's a special human.
So you played Zaki in the Off-Broadway run, and now you've shifted roles in this production. You now are the director. You directed it in Princeton, a stage reading, and you directed it in Bowden, and you're going to direct it at the Kennedy Center. You're not playing Zaki. Why are you not playing Zaki?
Well, mainly because it's not an impossible task to do both, but it's better for me as a director to be able to separate myself and have my eye externally on everybody. And I am replaced by a marvelous actor who does the role justice. So.
Yes, you are. So the performances at Bowden and at Princeton and at the Kennedy Center will be, I would call them dramatized stage readings, slightly dramatized stage readings. It's very hard for you probably to me, they're as powerful or perhaps more powerful almost than the Off-Broadway performance. It's very interesting experiences. The Off-Broadway performance was so immersive. It was like you were in the middle of it, actually, the tension. But it was a very tense experience. Whereas in my experience, I've seen the play so many times now that it's very hard to be neutral. I'd love to know. There are some people who've seen it in Princeton, Bowden, and in New York, and I'd love to hear their thoughts on it. And actually, there's someone who's seen it in Princeton, New York, and they're going to the Kennedy Center. So I'd love to know, what do you think the differences are between the Off-Broadway and then the readings that we did in Bowden and Princeton?
The feedback we've gotten from it being in just the stage reading format has been extraordinary. And you'll remember this story. There was one night, the Off-Broadway production was very immersive, and it was chaos and awfulness, and the sounds of gunfire and grenades and rockets and explosions, and obviously a different mechanism when you're fully memorized and you're presenting the play as a full production.
And it was directed by Jeffrey Cantor, and he used every inch of the theater, which was amazing, right? You literally had people coming from behind. You didn't know where the next bit of dialogue was going to come from. People were kept on edge, slightly on edge. That's a much overused word now, but he really made it immersive. And what I loved was there was limitations with the venue, and he used the limitations of the venue
very
to
smart
our advantage. Yeah,
as you said, we entered from the back of the house. There, in this particular space, there were no wings to exit stage left or stage right, just one exit upstage. And he made great use of the house, and all the lighting and the sound effects and all of it put you in the middle of this awful chaos. But you'll maybe remember there was one night where we went to work, and the sound system died.
That's
So
right.
we were forced to perform the play without all those sound effects, bells and whistles. And while all of that was extraordinary and well thought out and beautifully directed and smart and engaging, that night that we had to do it without any of those sound effects was just a beautiful reminder that the thing that's most important about this play are the words. And so we had really an opportunity in that evening to do it, staged in the same way, but without the gunfire and without all of those extras. And I think the audience, had a special evening. But for us actors, I remember everybody got off stage that night and said, "Wow." Just it moved us all in a different way. And in this staged reading format, we found that it served much in the same way, because the actors have their scripts in hands and there's just music stands set up in three different sort of arenas. And so we're once again reminded that it's a verbatim play, and really the most important character in all of it is the script, are these people's real words from their real lived experiences from that day. And so doing it in a reading format, I think, gives the audience a chance to really just be engaged by these words, these real words.
Yeah. Now, I noticed the way that you lean forward there. You can actually see people in the theater leaning forward. They don't want to miss a word.
Yeah.
Right. It's so unlike most theatrical experiences, where they kind of sit back and absorb what the writer has written. They're leaning forward because they don't want to miss a word.
Yeah.
It's an amazing experience. So I wanted to talk to you. So you directed it in Princeton, you directed it in Bowdoin, and then I approached you about directing it in a place called the Kennedy Center.
That's right.
Did you have any, which has been taken over by someone you may have heard of called President Trump?
And it's newly named.
Yeah, well, when I first approached you, or when we first approached you, it was just the Kennedy Center. Did you have any doubts about going to the Kennedy Center, given that President Trump had taken over the board, et cetera, et cetera?
No, not in the least. I try to keep my politics private. And when I was a kid, you did, and you were respected for keeping your politics to yourself, among some other things that sort of were sacred and private. I'm not afraid to have conversations about politics or history or any of it, but I couldn't have cared less that it was happening at the Kennedy Center during the Trump administration any more than I would have cared during any other administration, because again, it's about this play and about words and about our responsibility as artists to honor the words and to do these people justice, do their stories justice. I did receive some pushback, when the venue was changed. I think I had posted something on Instagram about it. And, I bumped into a friend or two who were, their response was tantamount to how can you?
Yes.
And, my answer is exactly what I just said, because the boards of the stage at the Kennedy Center are, over 50 years old. They've been around long before Trump. They'll be around, God willing, long after Trump. And the legendary actors and artists and writers and dancers and people who have trod those boards have nothing to do with a name change or an administration, and the politics of that administration. All I care about is that we're there bringing these words to life again. And, so when I got some pushback, my answer honestly is I don't care. All I care about is the play.
Yeah, well, I'm slightly different. I care in a sense. I've said to people, and this is not your opinion. This is not, but this is. I'm just going to throw my. I'm supposed to be asking questions here. I'm gonna answer my own question here. It's like some people have said to me, oh, I won't go to the Kennedy Center. I wouldn't feel comfortable, literally, with that fascist there or whatever. And I'm going, look, I went to UCLA with this play. I went to Princeton with this play. I went to Bowdoin College. I went to middle of Manhattan with this play, where it's full of rabid anti-Semites who hate my guts, right? And I'm not even Jewish, but they hate my guts because I give Jewish voices a voice. They hate my guts because of my conservative beliefs. I didn't feel comfortable in Bowdoin. I was half waiting for someone to get up and interrupt the play. I didn't feel comfortable at UCLA. UCLA, we had drones and helicopters, two different separate security checkpoints, hundreds of police officers, bomb sniffing dogs twice a day. The bomb sniffing dogs at 6 in the morning and bomb sniffing dogs in the theater at 6 at night.
Wow.
Right? I didn't feel comfortable there. Most of the people there would have hated me, right? In the campus. So if I'm going to go where I feel uncomfortable, but also, isn't that the job of artists to go where you're on where it's uncomfortable?
Used to be.
It's like,
what are we doing if we're not, if all art becomes myopic and the point of it is to, only cater to one narrative, which is, to my feeling, sort of been the lay of the land for the last, 5-6 years, then we're not doing our job. And why would you want to see art that only offers one point of view, one school of thought, one narrative?
Sorry to interrupt, but the group that pulled out called their decision to pull out, the Dick Barone dancing group or whatever it is, Barone dancing group, morally exhilarating. And I thought at the time, you're really happy. It's for you. You're doing it.
That's about you. That's not about your art.
Yes, or your audience.
Or your audience.
Don't you want to expand your audience? And the answer is actually they don't. They don't.
No, they just want to expand their narrative.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's again entirely antithetical, at least to my thinking, of why we make art.
So tell me, what will people see? After we record this, I'm getting on a plane going over to New York to join you for the rehearsals, where I will be standing over your shoulder, telling you, "You're doing that wrong, Jeff." No, I won't. No, I won't. I won't. I won't.
You've always been great.
But what will people see when they go to the Kennedy Center?
Well, we're again, it's a staged reading, and the point of a staged reading again is that it's about the words. But we're pulling out some stops with Kennedy Center because it's such a special venue, and we've added a lighting designer. So for the stage readings at the colleges in the past, it's almost been sort of what you would see for a guest speaker, as opposed to a theatrical presentation. Just an open wash of lights, and the play begins and the play ends under that same lighting. But we've added a lighting designer, and there's going to be a lot of really special, well thought out, smart lighting cues that will be part of the presentation. You don't want to go overboard with the technical aspects in a reading, because it's a bit of a balance to stay in reading land versus just edging into full presentation. But I think Ryan Randazzo is the lighting designer's name, and he's just an incredibly talented kid, and I'm very glad that we have him. And I think that's just going to add a little it's going to add a lot to the storytelling, I think. But again, it will remain simple, and it will be about the work that these incredible actors do. I mean, it's in many ways, there's an extra layer of challenge to acting with a script in your hand, turning pages, but remaining engaged with the other actors on stage with you as you're reading. And these guys are just great, and they're able to really, commit to the life that they would bring to it as an actor in a full out format. But this will be a special one, not just because it's at the Kennedy Center, but because we're adding a couple of elements that I think will just elevate it a little bit.
Very good. Very good. Well, we look forward to it. Anything you want to say about the play, or before you go, or about the performance?
No, the only thing I think, it's funny, you and I spoke after Bowdoin, and shortly after we presented at Bowdoin, the ceasefire happened. Which to my thinking was a glorious step forward and a great piece of good news. And I think I said to you, well, this is going to be a period piece now. And it'll probably be unlikely that I'd hope that we'd still be able to keep these words alive and present it in whatever Matt. But I thought, well, now the war is over. There's a ceasefire. There's going to be peace. Life will move forward. Hopefully there will really be finally a two-state solution, and that Israelis and Palestinians can carry on in peace. And then Bondi Beach happened, and I immediately realized that regardless of where the peace process is, these words will never lose their importance, because anti-Semitism, which is the oldest hate there is, I think will sadly always exist. So,
yeah,
what I hoped for, is I got a stark reminder from Bondi Beach that these words are more important than ever now.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I must read a book about anti-Semitism sometimes, because it is the oldest hate. It's a weird hatred. It's like it makes no sense. Like, I mean, it makes on so many levels. It's just strange. But it's incredibly it sticks, like, and it can disappear for 100 years, or
Always lurking.
It's always lurking. Like, I never knew it existed in Ireland growing up. I never knew. It wasn't just something that I'd never heard, never thought about, never
like the Irish don't know that it exists now, but
I know. Yeah, I know it exists now in Ireland. I mean, it's like, this is what great artists do. And I was saying this to someone yesterday. The other way people say Shakespeare knew everything, and he did. Everything's in Shakespeare's books. James Joyce is another guy. James Joyce knew everything. If you read his books, they're not easy to read, some of them. Everything's in there. And, so he wrote Ulysses, which is about an alienated man in Dublin in 1904. And who did he choose to be the representative of an alienated person in Dublin in 1904? What of all the characters he could have chosen, he chose a Hungarian, the son of a Hungarian Jew. And there was anti-Semitism in Ulysses. And I'm going, how the heck did Joyce know that? I mean,
oldest hate in the world.
Yeah, but he must have realized there's something going on here, because you hear lots of it. There'll be a lot of anti-English sentiment in Ireland. There'll be a lot of anti-British, or you see anti-landlord, anti-Protestant. He chose the Jew, and I think he was smart. He knew things, that weren't going to emerge for another 120 years. But okay,
the insight of the great writers.
Yes, yeah. Jeff, thank you for coming on the show, and we'll see you in a little while at the rehearsals.
I'll see you very soon, my friend.
Thanks. All the best.
To you too.
Yeah.
And talking about Israel and talking about the Jews and anti-Semitism, it's kind of an interesting segue into a story we just saw in the New York Times that I think really is worth talking about. Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, is about to come out in the next week, I think it is actually, on the 27th of January, with a sort of tell-all memoir of his time. Yes. I think running for VP, or being thought about as a potential VP running mate with Kamala Harris. I think the book is really quite extraordinary, the things he's talking about.
I think we should put it in context. He was the most obvious candidate for VP. He was kind of smooth and
highly articulate,
had done a lot.
Yes, very smart.
But also was the popular governor of Pennsylvania, which really, you need to win Pennsylvania if you're going to win the presidency.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So he was the popular governor. So I think he won the governorship with 60% of the vote in a 50-50 state in presidential elections. So he could have swung a few 100,000 votes, which is what Kamala needed in Pennsylvania. But he wasn't chosen for VP. They chose that genius Tim Walz.
Oh yeah,
who's just
I mean, when you line those two guys up together, it is absolutely inconceivable that they would choose Walz over Josh Shapiro. So in the book, and this is some of the stuff, this is from the New York Times, and it's incredible. I think, of course, the really unfortunate thing is that he didn't say any of this at the time.
Yes.
He was far too loyal to the party. But so he went through this vetting process to see whether or not he'd be suitable. Mr. Shapiro, we should point out, is Jewish, and you'll see where this is going in a moment here. So he details a contentious vetting process in which Miss Harris's team focused intensely on his views of Israel. So much so that at one point he wrote, he was asked if he had ever been an agent of the Israeli government.
By the way,
had I been a double agent for Israel? ? Wrote Mr. Shapiro, describing his incredulous response to a last-minute question from the vetting team. He responded that the question was offensive, he wrote, and was told, well, we have to ask. So Philip, I don't know whether you think that that's fair, as a kind of a response that, we just have to ask people. And his point was everybody asked this question?
But also, I like the way the New York Times has kind of shaped this, details a contentious vetting process in which Miss Harris's teams focused intensely on his views on Israel. It's like, and then the question they ask is, have you ever been a double agent for Israel? It's not quite views, Like, in other words, have you ever betrayed your country? Because we know all that's what Jewish people do. They have this double loyalty, and they're secretly loyal to the vast Jewish conspiracy.
Like the Catholics,
Yes, well, that's the way it used to be,
So they went on to say, they would go on to say in the New York Times article, and this is quoting from his book, he was asked, quote, have you ever communicated with an undercover agent of Israel? The questioner, Dana Remus, a former White House counsel, continued, according to Mr. Shapiro, who recounted, if they were undercover, I responded, how the hell would I know, right? Mr. Shapiro, by the way, who an outspoken critic of what he saw as anti-Semitism on college campuses.
This is the New York Times saying this.
All from the New York Times. So Mr. Shapiro was an outspoken critic of what he saw as the anti-Semitism that was rife on college campuses. Wrote that he faced skepticism of that record during vetting.
Yes.
When Miss Harris asked if he would be willing to apologize for the statements I had made, particularly over what I saw happening at the University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
He replied that he would not. And he wrote, I believe in free speech. I'll defend it with all I've got, he wrote. Most of the speech on campus, even that of which I disagreed with, was peaceful and constitutionally protected, but some wasn't peaceful. This is what he's saying.
Yeah, but this is, stop it, Josh. Most of it was vile and violent. And on many, many campuses across the United States, they were called non-Zionist zones.
Yeah.
Zionists not welcome. In other words, Jewish people not welcome.
No, well, this is what and this is the point that he's making, that basically,
some wasn't peaceful. Most of it wasn't peaceful. Most of it was intimidatory, in my opinion.
And by the way, and I haven't got it here, but actually the other thing that they asked him at one point, they sort of said to him, I don't know what your finances are like, because, your wife's going to need a whole new wardrobe. So that, he got these questions, and I suppose the question is, did everyone get these similar questions? Was Tim Walz asked, did his wife have enough money to buy the posh dress?
There's two things about that. I think, saying that, it's kind of, well, we know you Jews like money, or whatever, or don't like spending money. It's kind of anti-Semitic. But also, I think at that stage, they were trying to persuade him not to run. Because there's no logical explanation for not running him as opposed to Tim Walz, except that they would have to admit that by not picking him, they couldn't alienate the 25% of their base or more that's anti-Semitic. The March for Life is coming up, and it's an amazing day.
Yeah.
It's an
You're
amazing...
anywhere near there, please attend. Please turn up.
Yeah, the March for Life. And that got us thinking about abortion, and which we've covered a lot with our Gosnell movie and our podcast. And we also saw the recent Senate Health Committee hearing about the abortion pill, the dangers of the abortion pill. Mm-hmm. And again, that made us think of a previous interview we did with Jamie Hall from Texas. And we thought we'd go back and revisit and ask, because I think Jamie's report into the dangers of the abortion pill really prompted the Senate Health Committee to have this hearing. So I did the interview earlier. Just before we go into the interview, we do discuss abortion and sometimes the details of abortion. So if there are any young people listening, or if you're particularly sensitive to that, you might want to skip forward. I'm joined now by Jamie Hall, who's the Director of Data Analysis at the Ethics and Public Policy Centre. He used to work at the Heritage Foundation, researching a wide range of topics, everything from immigration to education. He started his political life working in the George W. Bush administration. His opinion pieces have appeared at a wide range of outlets, the Washington Post, the Washington Examiner, the Daily Signal. We've had Jamie on the show before talking about his report, but really, it's really come to the fore in recent weeks because of this Senate hearing. So, Jamie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. It's really an honor to be here.
So, first of all, can you remind us, give us a summary really of what your report said and how it's kind of unique because it uses data, and how important was it to get this Senate hearing up and going?
Sure. We were able to obtain insurance claims data for basically all insurance claims in the United States from 2017 to 2023. And within that data, identify 865,727 cases in which a woman was prescribed an abortion pill, mifepristone, and track her medical claims for the next 45 days after she received that prescription and see what sorts of adverse events she would experience. So the label for the drug mifepristone says that less than half of percent of women experience a serious adverse event, but we actually found that it was 10.93% of women experience a serious adverse event. So nearly 22 times what the label says. So this was, of course, big news that it's so wrong what these women are being told when they're considering taking the abortion drug. Of course, we're opposed to abortion in general, but it's even worse now knowing that the women are being harmed in about 1 in 10 cases as well. Not only is the child dying, but the women are being harmed.
Yeah, and as I said, before you came on air, the number of pill abortions has just exploded in recent years. Like is it over half of all abortions now?
Yeah, it's about 2/3 of abortions now, up from zero, of course, before it was approved at the end of the Clinton administration. It's just been a straight line upward, increasing share every year. Now it's over 2/3 of abortions in the United States are performed using these pills rather than a traditional surgical procedure that folks might have in mind when they're thinking of abortion.
This is an incredible increase, and of course, it's so political too. The abortion pill. I mean, we've seen how science has become politicized and how medicine has become politicized, and can we trust their claims? Can we trust their data? Is there data on their side, or where did they get this 0.1%
There were clinical trials conducted when the pill was being approved in the United States and in other countries. They actually, on the label, quote results from 10 of those trials across the world, included a total of about 31,000 women. However, these women are generally selected for these trials because they're healthy. They receive very high quality care during the procedure.
Yes.
Constant follow-up, making sure if anything's starting to go wrong, they're gonna get taken care of right away. So it's not representative of the experience of the women who are having these abortions using this pill in the United States today. So we had data for, like I said, 865,727 women. So about 28 times as much data as was in all of these clinical trials combined. All of our data is from 2017 onward. Their data, all of it's at least 10 years old. So all of their data is older than any of our data. They're looking at ideal conditions. We're looking at real world conditions.
Real world.
It's no surprise that we're finding a much higher serious adverse event rate now. Exactly that high. That was still kind of shocking to us. But
yeah. I want to get on to talk about the Senate hearing, but your report is just so fascinating because, especially now with abortion being banned in so many states, people are getting this pill online with often very minimal diagnosis or consultation. Can you order it with no consultation, or does it have to be some kind of communication?
Well, in theory, there should be. In reality, anyone can go online, search, find it, fill out a little questionnaire, and get the pill sent in the mail. You don't have to be pregnant. You don't even have to be a woman to get it, and that's part of the problem, right? These men who would not like for their wives, or more often their girlfriend or former girlfriend, to be pregnant, who obtain these pills online and slip them into their food or drink, and force them into abortions. That's been a serious problem that's come to light here recently, and there's no way to prevent this when it's allowed to be distributed,
Yeah.
online. You wouldn't
Yeah.
do this with any other dangerous drug, but abortion is the exception, as it
Yeah.
is in so many other cases.
Yeah. So let's talk about the hearing. You were there. You were at the Senate Health Committee. You were there for the hearing. What did you? Were you glad to see it, and what did you think of in general? Let's talk about it in general. How do you think it went?
Oh, I think it was great. It's wonderful that Senator Cassidy thought that this was an important enough issue to have this be their first hearing of the year. The room was packed. There was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
energy on both sides. Definitely, we were very pleased with how it went. And I know there have been a few clips from the hearing that have kind of gone viral online,
Mm-hmm.
particularly Senator Hawley asking the Democrats' witness whether men can get pregnant. I think he
Yes,
asked her about 11 times, and
that's
she
correct.
refused to answer at all. So there were quite a few highlights along those lines in the
Yeah.
hearing,
Yeah,
and
we're going to
course,
play that. We're going to play that after your interview, actually, because it's slightly off topic, but actually it's not, because it shows the caliber of the scientists who are supposedly telling you this is safe. It shows that everything for these people is political. That if something is politically inconvenient, they will deny the truth. So they will not answer whether a man can get pregnant, because it's a political question in their view, not a scientific one. So these are the same people who are supposed to we're supposed to trust when they say, "Oh no, the abortion pill is completely harmless." So it's slightly off topic, but actually it's in a wider sense, it's actually completely on topic.
well, absolutely. The title of the hearing was "Protecting Women: Exposing the Dangers of Mifepristone." Well, if you can't even be sure what a woman is, it's really
Yeah.
hard to be
Hmm.
taken seriously with your opinions on the matter.
Yeah.
So it was very disappointing to see that from the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, talk about the other side. What were their arguments? Let try and switch gears there and come over. Tell me their arguments, and tell me their science that they had backing it up, and what would you say in response?
Well, they'll say that they have over 400 peer-reviewed articles that say that
Hmm.
mifepristone is safe and effective. Um, Now, do they give us that list of 400 articles? No. Do all of them are all of them of great quality? Well, no. A lot of them are, just like what we were talking about, clinical trials, those sorts of
Hmm.
things, where the women are being tracked very carefully, given wonderful
Yeah.
follow-up care. Nothing like what an actual woman experiences when she goes online and orders a pill, gets it shipped in the mail, and told to, have her abortion at home and show up at the ER if anything goes wrong. That's not what their trials are like. So that's why we have always, been asking for the FDA to put back into place the safety protocols that were originally in place when mifepristone was approved under the Clinton administration, because those much more closely resemble the conditions in a clinical
Okay.
trial.
What were those safety protocols?
So the entire procedure required at least 3 visits. The one visit initially to check the gestational age and location of the pregnancy, make sure that
Hmm.
that the woman's not too far along, that she doesn't have an ectopic pregnancy, anything like that, and they could dispense and allow the woman to take the first pill. It's a
Hmm.
2 pill sequence, right? So they could give her the pill there in the office, make sure nothing went terribly wrong right away. Then within 2 days, she comes back, gets the second pill, which actually causes the parts of the dead baby to be expelled from her body. I don't
Hmm.
know, like a clean way to say that, but
Yes.
that happens after the second pill. Also was required to be given in the office,
Wow.
and then about 2 weeks afterward, she comes back to make sure that actually everything was expelled from her body, that and then that she is not showing any signs of infection or anything like that. So it was a 3-step process. The pills were all dispensed to the pregnant woman in the office. She took them in the office. If anything went terribly wrong, she had care right away. Now it's, somebody goes online, orders a pill.
Who changed those rules, or what was the process?
The initial changes were made under the Obama administration. It's amazing. Everything big kind of happens in the last year of a Democratic administration. So they approved the thing in the first place under Clinton. Then in the last year of the Obama administration, they changed the rules to reduce it to 1 in-person doctor visit required at the beginning, and to allow all the pills to be taken at home, so you didn't have the oversight. They also removed the requirements that the doctors report any complications that occurred, except if they happen to find out that the woman had died. But if they're not the ones giving her the pills, they don't necessarily have ongoing contact with her, they might not even know if that happened. So they changed that at the end of the Obama administration. And then initially during COVID, the other side sued to remove the 1 remaining visit requirement, because doctors' offices were shut down and so on. So so of course they wanted to take that, because they wanted to make sure abortions could still happen, even if you weren't allowed to go out to church or anything else. Gotta have the abortions. So they initially did that under a court order, but then that was appealed and went through back and forth through a legal process. Near the end of the Biden administration, the FDA finalized changes that made it so that there was no longer a requirement even for the 1 in-person visit. So that's why we've seen even greater increases in the serious adverse events since then, as well as more of these cases of coercion or forced abortions, because now basically anyone can get their hands on the pill.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions that are kind of the same question in some ways. What would you like to see happen now, and what do you think is going to happen now? What's going to come out? What's your ideal outcome of this hearing, and what do you think is going to happen?
Ideally, we'd like to see this banned entirely. We know that's not going to happen right now. We'd like for the FDA to conduct its own study, looking at the real world data as well as clinical data that they have, and confirm or deny what we came up with. I don't think anyone's in better position than the FDA to actually look at the data in an unbiased way and say what's really happening to these women. Secretary Kennedy, RFK Jr. has already said in response to our data that it indicates that at the very least the label should be changed. I think that's like the bare minimum that that would be acceptable here. I think in reality, if you could get the in-person dispensing requirement back in place, that would make a huge difference. Because right now, without requiring any doctor visits, it's incredibly risky for the woman, right, who's basically left on her own to manage her abortion. And it's just terrible. So
it's an appalling situation. And so many young women are not prepared for what they see.
Oh no! They look down.
I don't want to get too graphic,
It's like it's just
a baby. It's a baby.
It's just disgusting. And they're not prepared for it. And not that anyone could really be prepared for something like that. I mean, it's terrible. And
I remember we interviewed. I need to wrap up. Unfortunately, we have to go. But we interviewed a psychiatrist who I think was at a university in North Carolina, and she said, I was walking around the campus, and it was after the floods. Now, this campus was not, particularly near the floods, but there was all these posters up. If you've been traumatized by the floods, call this number. And she was looking at all these young women, thinking, how many of them have taken the abortion pill? And shouldn't there be signs up saying if you've had a trauma associated with the abortion pill or a trauma associated with abortion, call this number? But no, an abortion was not. You were told it's not a traumatic event. It's normalize your abortion, but a flood 100 miles away that you're not involved with, you need mental health care for that. It's talk about denial.
Absolutely. Just a lot of women being left on their own to deal with things that no one should ever experience.
No.
And she wouldn't experience if everything was in place to give her the care that she needs throughout the process.
Yeah.
To actually have the child.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Look, we could talk all day about this. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for doing this important work. Keep doing it. I love the fact that it's data-based. By the way, there's nothing wrong with telling emotional stories about abortion either, because it's when people find out the truth about abortion, what it actually means. Like when I found out the truth about abortion, what it actually means, I changed my opinion on abortion. It's only the other side are doing a great job of it's just a blob of cells, and it's nothing until when you get to hear the truth about what it involves, then you realize this is appalling. And I think that's what happened. Trump, someone told him what an abortion was. I think he's on record as having said that, and it changed his opinion. So keep doing what you're doing. We would love to have you back on the show. Hopefully we'll have some good news to report the next time. But let's keep a sharp eye on this, and let's keep a sharp eye on the people who make decisions.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
That was a great interview with Jamie. We will follow this story. We will keep following this story. It's an amazing story. I feel that it could be one of the biggest medical scandals in decades when the truth comes out about it. It's just a vast experiment being carried out on hundreds of thousands of women every year with no data to see what the repercussions are. And just as we discussed during the interview, there was this amazing exchange. Between a professor.
Professor Dr. Varma, from Emory. We're going to play this because I think it's really worth, and we're going to play it in full, even though it seems very repetitive. It's really worth watching because these are the people, some people will say things like, why are people so skeptical about taking vaccines or whatever? People are skeptical about medical science now because of people like Dr. Varna, who is a professor from the medical school at Emory. Josh Hawley, who is a senator, asks her a very simple question. She continually says to him, we're not politicizing, I don't believe in politicizing science. There's one person in this exchange who politicizes science, and it's not Senator Josh Hawley. And I think it's important, as you listen to this right now, think about this woman. She has a medical degree from the University of North Carolina. She is a board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist. And I love this, and complex family planning specialist, whatever that means. She has a master's degree in public health from Emory. Watch this woman with all those qualifications, those medical qualifications, and the fact that she teaches, by the way, at Emory. Watch her not answer an incredibly simple question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since you bring it up, why don't we just start there? Dr. Verma, I wasn't sure I understood your answer to Senator Moody a moment ago. Do you think that men can get pregnant?
I hesitated there because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going or what the goal was. I mean, I do take care of patients with different identities. I take care of many women. I take care of people with different identities. And so that's where I paused. I think, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question is.
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics. Absolutely. So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities, but
can men get pregnant?
There are many women that can get pregnant. I do take care of people that don't identify as women.
Can men get pregnant?
Again, as I'm saying,
let me just remind you what you testified to a moment ago. Science and evidence should control, not politics. Absolutely. So can men get pregnant? You're a
totally
doctor, I
agree.
think.
Science and evidence should guide medicine.
Do science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant? Biological men, can they get pregnant?
I also think yes/no questions like this are a political tool. And
No, yes/no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about science and evidence, and I'm asking you. The United States Supreme Court just heard arguments yesterday at great length on this question. This is not a hypothetical question. This is not theoretical. It affects real people in their real lives. And you're here as an expert, called by the other side as an expert, and you've been telling us that you follow, right, you're a doctor, and you follow the science and the evidence. So I just want to know, based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think.
I think you're trying to reduce the complexity of a lot.
I'm not. I'm trying to get, it's not complex. I'm trying to get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating
This is
male
extraordinary.
female with
No, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's biological men and there's biological women. And I want to know, can men get pregnant?
What you were talking about is biological.
You're not going to answer my question, it sounds like.
Biological males.
This isn't hard, doctor. Can men get pregnant? Yes or no?
Again, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you that is not coming from a place of trying to be polarized and push.
I'm not trying to be polarizing. I'm trying to ask, I think it is extraordinary that we are here in a hearing about science and about women. And for the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men. We are here about the safety of women and science that shows that this abortion drug causes adverse health events in 11% of cases. That's 22 times greater than the FDA label, another fact you haven't acknowledged, and yet you won't even acknowledge the basic reality that biological men don't get pregnant. There's a difference between biological men and biological women. I don't know how we can take you seriously and your claims to be a person of science if you won't level with this on this basic issue. I thought we were past all of this, frankly. I can't believe we're still here talking about this.
I am a person of science, and I'm also someone here who's here to represent the complex experiences of my patients, and I don't think polarized language or questions serve that goal. I don't think they serve the American people.
It is not polarizing to say that there is a scientific difference between men and women, and I want this to be clear and for the record. It is not polarizing to say that women are a biological reality and should be treated and protected as such. That is not polarizing, that is truth. It is also, by the way, the United States Constitution, which offers unique protections to women in a variety of circumstances as women. And your refusal to recognize women as women and men as men is deeply corrosive to science, to public trust, and yes, to constitutional protections for women as women. And I think it's extraordinary that you would sit here and advance a political agenda that has been thoroughly discredited and rejected by the American people in this forum. And I'm glad we had this exchange because it is exceptionally clarifying. It is also in many ways quite depressing. I see that my time has nearly expired. I just want to thank the other witnesses for being here. Thank you for protecting women and children. Thank you for your valiant efforts. Thank you for following the science. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this hearing.
I hate the medical establishment. You know that?
Yeah.
Because they have basically destroyed my confidence in so many things I used to be confident
That's right. Yeah. Because before you'd say things like, all the scientists agree. The medical establishment said we should do this or we should do that.
That vaccine or this vaccine.
But then you have a voice like that, and it's like, okay, now I don't believe anyone about anything. You know?
No, and it's very serious.
It's incredibly serious. So we've come to the end of the podcast. I just thought we'd bring you this last thing because Kevin Spacey spoke recently at the Oxford Union, and he tells a story, and we're going to play the whole of what he said. It's about 5 minutes long at the end of the podcast, in a couple of minutes. But before we do that, we just wanted to say, if you don't know the whole truth about the Kevin Spacey of what happened to him in the many, many trials he faced, the many accusations that were thrown at him, all of which he has been exonerated in full in every possible court that have thrown stuff at him. he has been exonerated. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yes, no.
I mean, it's incredibly unreported. It's an incredible, that's the reason why we did this story. So if you haven't, go to Kevin Spacey Trial Unfiltered and listen. And it's as they say, it's in everywhere where you get your podcast. It's on the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc.
I think it's one of our best products, one of the best things we've ever produced. I mean, I like to say, and this is true, Kevin Spacey has been exonerated in 4 courtrooms in 2 jurisdictions.
And we were in London, by the way, the most recent exoneration, where he stood in the dock, and we were there for every day of the trial. But at the end, he stood in the dock. It was quite extraordinary. And they have a dock. In London, it's really intimidating because you're in a box and there's a couple of cops standing behind you. I mean, it's all very nasty. And he had to stand there. And there were, I think at the end, it was something like there were 14 charges. So he stood there and it went, not guilty, not guilty. 14 times he heard that. And he cried. He cried. And I mean, the jury were just, I mean, absolutely, you know.
I know we have to go, but there's another group of people who cried as well.
Go, oh yeah.
The journalists.
The journalists. It was quite funny, yeah. The journalists who were there, and there were a lot of journalists there who should have no interest in the outcome except for let's get the news here and make sure we get the news straight so we can report to people. Oh, they were so disappointed. Okay. They were like, they were sighing. They were like, they really genuinely.
And one of them approached me on behalf of his colleagues, upset about my coverage of the trial. They said, contempt of court and identify. No, I was revealing evidence that they weren't reporting.
They didn't want, yeah.
That was said in open court.
We're going to play that out, but before we do that, we just say again, please go to October7theplay.com and buy tickets. Go to unreportedstorysociety.com and donate. And now let's listen to Kevin Spacey. Go to the end because there's a twist. See you next time.
I used to believe, can you all hear me? I used to believe that the truth would win. That if you kept calm, stayed quiet, and let the system work, eventually the facts would speak louder than the noise. But I was wrong. I am here to tell you, with the authority that very few others have, that once accusations are made, the facts don't matter. They don't want the truth. They want a villain. And I was perfect for the part. I was a legendary star, I was eccentric, and I didn't play by their rules. The media ran headlines that said I had committed sexual assault. And then the pile-on. People suddenly coming out of the woodwork to say that I was a monster, that I was drunk, that I laughed while it happened. It was grotesque, sensational, and completely false. But it sold papers. It gave the audience what they wanted. 3 trials. The first, a mistrial. The second, a mistrial. The third, it took the jury just a few minutes to return a unanimous acquittal. And then they issued a public apology. The jury did. Well, I thought that was going to be the end of it. But it wasn't. Am I still angry after all these years? Well, the bigger question might be, why aren't you? I mean, you believe in justice, don't you? Don't you? Don't you? It gets worse. During my trials, unbeknownst to me, 10 of the top studio bosses in Hollywood bonded together to hire a czar to show Wall Street and the public that they took their concerns of immoral behavior that were rumored to be taking place and that they would clean up Hollywood once and for all. And so, 1 week to the day that I was cleared of all charges, I was officially blacklisted to ever work again in the industry and the profession I had only ever known. Not when I was accused, not during the trials, but only after I finally won my case, after the system had done its job. That's when they threw me away. Not because I was guilty, but because I was inconvenient. And in this business, truth doesn't redeem you, it embarrasses the people who are wrong about you, and so they bury you even deeper. Now that story that I just shared with all of you happened over 100 years ago. Oh, did you think I was talking about myself? Oh, no. I have been sharing with you the story of Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, one of the most beloved, bankable stars of the silent era. In fact, in 1918, he signed the biggest contract in Hollywood to that point. Paramount Pictures paid him $3 million, which made him the highest paid actor at the time in Hollywood. And then, just a few years later, he was accused of a crime he didn't commit. 3 trials, full acquittal, and then blacklisted. Not because of guilt, because of a narrative. I want to read to you what the jury wrote in their letter of apology in their own words after they exonerated him. This is directly from a New York Times article entitled, "Arbuckle Acquitted in 1-Minute Verdict." 1 minute. Dated April 13th, 1922. This is a quote now. "Acquittal is not enough for Roscoe Arbuckle. We feel that a great injustice has been done him. We feel also that it was only our plain duty to give him this exoneration under the evidence for which there was not the slightest proof adduced to connect him in any way with the commission of a crime. He was manly throughout the case." That's how they wrote this. "He was manly throughout the case and told a straightforward story on the witness stand, which we all believed. The happenings at the hotel was an unfortunate affair for which Arbuckle, so the evidence showed, was in no way responsible. We wish him success and hope that the American people will take the judgment of 14 men and women who have sat listening for 31 days to the evidence that Roscoe Arbuckle is entirely innocent and free from all blame." That was in 1922, 103 years ago. So, what exactly have we learned?